Chevy, I used to do Dyke nights on Wednesdays. I do like Spanish clubs sometimes. I have like a group of people that I go to cycle bar with, or hot yoga, or bingo night on Wednesdays now, like different events that I do because although I wouldn't consider myself an extrovert, I think if you've ever met me and had a 10-minute long conversation with me, you would probably think that I am. So besides that, I like to follow a lot of Buddhist mindsets. The reason for that is that I feel like my morals as an Indigenous person follow a lot of Buddhist lifestyles, and that's how I see it. I don't see it as a religion. I see it as a lifestyle of practicing goodness and kindness and community, of inner peace, inner sanity, and continuing that and giving that to the world as a gift. Obviously, in my work, that is a very complicated thing because we are continuously seeing crises. And so it's about emotional regulation and also giving myself space to be free, and acknowledging that I am a person, that I am allowed that freedom. And yeah, I think that's a little bit about me.
That was amazing, MJ. And I especially appreciate the fact that you mentioned what your faith tradition looks like, what exploring spirituality looks like, because Spirit Uncensored, we are intentionally an interfaith organization, though I don't have like official interfaith sorts of education. It's important to me that Spirit Uncensored is a place where people of all walks of life can come together to inspire one another. And it's not about a hierarchy. It doesn't mean that my job as a senior minister means I am the only voice that's important in the room. It's about community and recognizing that as senior minister, my only job is to do the work, to bring y'all together, to make sure the Zoom and the YouTube is working. The Facebook did not, so it ended up going to YouTube. And I'd love to know, like Linda Tony Bayer mentioned that they're going to be off and on. What it means to be Spirit Uncensored is not just language. It means that, if you are eating at the same time, if you are smoking some weed right now, this is a space for you to be who you are, express yourself authentically, and know that what it means to show up as an example of peace is not about censorship. It's about celebration of authenticity. So with that, I'd love to talk a little bit about Chevy Sharp. Chevy lives in Oklahoma City, and I know them from Alibi, as a bar that we both hang out in. Chevy was actually the king of the king and queen for prom last year, and got to ride in the float and represent Alibis. But the reason that I asked Chevy to show up for this conversation is because what I've seen, Chevy and actually haven't spent a lot of time outside of the bar, but every time I've seen them in the bar, they are a light in the place. People go to Chevy to calm down, for peace. Chevy, to me, exudes just peace as a vibe. And on top of that, pretty much everything that they post on Facebook is all positive information. It's all affirmations and encouraging people to live from a place of peace, whether intentionally or not. And so, Chevy, I'd love to hear about kind of how you got to be in this place where you seem to express from a place of peace, and how that looks for you in your life.
Okay. Well, I'm Chevy Sharp. I'm 35 years old. And I'm actually in Yukon, Oklahoma, but I am from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And my piece, I think, might be a little bit different, just because it did come from a place of maybe trauma or darkness growing up. I tried extra hard, just to, make sure everyone's smiling, make sure everyone's happy, and remembers that, we can go through these dark times, but life goes on and we make it through it. And you can't give up on that. People have, especially coming, like where I met you, the bar, they come there and they've had a bad day or want to drink, but they forget that, you go through these things in life, and that's what it's going to be. And you should be positive through it, because being negative through it is just not going to help it any at all. So I just try and be that light, just try and remind them that it's not, trust me, it's not that bad. It can be worse. Trust me. You've made it through this far. You can keep going. So that's just what I try and be. I was raised, with a lot of siblings, a lot of family. They're all very different. And I was very lucky that everyone kind of embraced everyone's differences. So I think growing up, that helped me embrace everyone else's differences as well, and just have a love and respect that we're not all the same. which is a blessing to me. You know, you get to learn so much when you stand back and realize that, you know, you get to learn these people in your walks of life and experience these human beings, whether it's short term or long term. And it just makes a big difference, you know, and just how you look at the world and how you view it and how you walk it day by day. If you just take time to appreciate that, your people's differences, it goes a long way. I was raised with Southern Baptist grandparents, Wiccan stepmother, and just all kinds of different beliefs around me. My dad was atheist. You know, he thinks we came from monkeys for all he knows. You know, he really doesn't have any views on it. And I was always very aware that I believed in a higher power. I knew something amazing made me, made the way our bodies work. And it's helped me appreciate life, I think. You know, it's given me that appreciation that you don't get everywhere. So that's just a little about me.
Amazing. Thank you, Chevy. It's funny. I didn't know anything about what your spiritual background is, and living in the Bible Belt. I think it's ironic that the two people from Oklahoma City that I invited to participate in this conversation are people who do not identify as Christian and have a diverse background associated with spirituality. And so I'm not going to say anything about what peace and spirituality and Christianity look like in Oklahoma City. I will keep that part to myself. But it just, to me, is really fascinating to learn this about you. And I appreciate you bringing that into the space. So we started out with Oklahoma City, and why don't we move over to Chicago? My cousin, Cece. Cece is my sister cousin. We were both essentially only children. I do have a brother, but he's 10 years older than I am. And Cece and I went to elementary school together. We spent all our weekends together because my mother had Cece during the week. She would drop me off at my Aunt Cynthia's during the weekend as part of their kind of agreement. And so
And your mom also taught Cece.
That's Elle, my wife Elle, mentioning that my mom was Cece's first grade teacher. So we grew up together, and also Cece's mother specifically is very involved in the church that we grew up in, my grandmother's church specifically. And growing up in I would say, Pentecostal traditional Black church, Cece was always open to the possibility of spirituality. That when I started at the Centers for Spiritual Living, Cece came with me a couple of times. She took an improv class there, and, you know, doesn't operate from the sense of, you know, you have to believe this or everyone else is going to hell. And I have a lot of respect for the fact that she is engaged and participates in her spiritual community, but always operates from a sense of openness. There's a minister, Reverend John Hanna in Chicago, whose church that she went to a while, and I came with her a few times, and it was one of the only Christian churches in Chicago that I resonated with. His message was always relatable and about inspiration, was about peace. And Cece is constantly posting on social media about how peace is an internal choice, that we don't have to allow the things out there to affect what's happening with our peace. And so, Cece, I would love for you to talk about your personal journey around choosing peace over and over again, regardless of the environments and situations that you've been in. Oh, wait, you're muted. One more time.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. Hello, everyone. My real name is Sateria, but I go by Cece because that's a little bit easier for everyone. So the reason why I had to begin to seek peace in my life is because I had so many fears. A lot of my fears began and started when I was a little kid through my parents. They had a terrible marriage. And a lot of times, you know how that can affect the children a little more than it really actually do the parents. So I've always had a fear. I had a fear about every little thing. It's to an extent I had someone to question me, am I fearful for being successful? Because it took me, taking me such a long time to finish school. And it made me think like, am I, fearful? Am I afraid of that? But it's just, I was so afraid of so many different things that I've stopped so many good things for myself. And it started because I came out of a terrible relationship of my own here a few years ago. And that's when I was completely broken. A little bit after that, I began, it triggered, and it allowed me to see that I had anxiety. I've been having anxiety for a very long time. So this was something that allowed me to begin to see more things about myself. In the midst of me experience depression and anxiety, these were the times that I was able to actually sit back and really allow myself to learn me. I I began to do things to make me happy. Um, Everything in my environment, I began to just start viewing things differently, viewing things, in a more peaceful way. And that's when I started saying to myself, wow, we are who allow ourselves to go through depression. No, I'm not saying that we want this, but we still have the control of our minds to choose if we are going to allow these things to take us over, or are we going to, how are we going to deal with this? So I am beginning how I began to find my peace. When I can't control something or I cannot change it, I allow it to work itself out. And it's been working out for me. That's the best advice that I can tell somebody. You're dealing with like depression, or you're dealing with anxiety, or you're dealing with fears. What can you do to change it? A lot of times you have to allow things to work itself out.
I appreciate you saying that, Cece. Like the fact that peace is a choice that we make over and over again, but also the having that faith of knowing and trusting that you don't have to know how this is going to work out. So we identified Spirit Uncensored's vision statement, which is, we are a spiritual playground highlighting the power of choice, faith, and gratitude. And that's essentially what we're talking about how peace itself is a choice, having faith in knowing that whatever it is that's disturbing our peace will be resolved in the right and perfect way. And also knowing that gratitude is something that comes along with peace. This is how we operate from a place of peace. I especially vibe with how Chevy talked about how, responding to an experience of darkness and trauma, that choosing gratitude, leaning into it, looking for the light, allows it a perfect opportunity for healing and shift, and allows her to serve as an example for peace in the community. So yes. Let's move on to California, Burbank, California. Reverend David Allen Cruz is the co-founder of Spirit Uncensored. And one of the reasons why I wanted him here for our first event of the new year of reigniting our monthly series is the concept of Spirit Uncensored started with David. And I feel like his voice was really important for this conversation. But on top of that, the reason why David and I came together to form this spiritual community is because we are both people who live from a place of peace. And I think we admire that about one another. And I love that, regardless of our differences in age, that we are very close friends. I have every intention to come stay with David sometime very soon. And when I was going through the week that I began my exit from LA and was kicked out of my house, David's was the first place that I went to. And he and his wife created just this safe, comfortable space for me. I showed my ass and drank too much wine and threw up all over their floor. And he was like loving and supportive and helpful, regardless of the fact that I did some messy shit that first week. And so
Okay, for the record, my wife has never thrown up in my This is not a daily occurrence. I've never actually seen them drunk.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get drunk. I was drinking wine with dinner, and I think I had eaten for like a couple of days, and I didn't see any of it coming. I didn't know I was getting drunk. My world was turning upside down. But I'm saying all this to say that Reverend David created this safe space for me, and also runs a spa called Happy and Relaxed. And he's told me a lot of the work that he does as a hypnotherapist specifically in Spanish-speaking and marginalized communities. So David, I'd love for you to talk about how you became this champion of peace in the world and the work that you do on the day-to-day with the clients that you support.
Thank you, KC. And I want you to acknowledge I called you KC.
Thank you.
I'm adjusting to the changes. So, and I'm glad you shared that story, because I would not have. I would never have told anybody that story, but it was a great story. Yes, and I'm blessed to have been I am a colleague and have been in ministerial school with KC. We started together, we worked together, and we suffered together, and we learned together. And I think she gives me too much credit when she says I was the one who was the concept of Spirit Uncensored. It was actually KC, and then she sparked a thing in me that said, yeah, let's do that. It's been an exciting journey. And as she says, I am a hypnotherapist. I have a 20-year practice, which is an opportunity for me to learn a hell of a lot. In Spanish, and I think, MJ, you might get this, we say, cada cabeza es un mundo. And what that translates as roughly is each head is its own world. And we are living in a collective of separate worlds. And I get to explore those worlds with each one of my clients. One of the things that I share with them is the idea that, and this is the basis of the work that I do with my clients, is that I am the creator of my reality. The creator. I am the creator of my reality. And reality is perception. How I choose to perceive any given moment, how I understand it, how I interpret it, how it feels to me creates my reality. If I change my reality, if I change my perception, I change my reality. Therefore, coming from a place of something that Casey is very familiar with, a belief of what I call the 3 spiritual principles, which are love only, forgive everything, and remember who you are, we begin to recognize that I am in fact creating my world each day. And the more I'm conscious of using those 3 spiritual principles, I get to create a life, a world of peace, love, and happiness. And I take full responsibility for that. Now, what does that mean? That means that it's incumbent upon me, to the best of my ability, to remain conscious of who I am, where I am at any given moment, recognizing that particularly when I'm sharing time with somebody else in any way, shape, or form, I get to create peace. How do I do that? Simple actions: a smile, a compliment, a gesture, a little thing of caring for the well-being of somebody else. And if one can begin to accept that as an aspect of one's life, fundamental to how one creates one's day, we then take personally both the responsibility and the creation of more peace in the world around me. So this is what peace begins with me means for me.
Beautiful. Thank you, David. I'm so grateful that you mentioned that the tagline, love only, forgive everything, remember who you are. That comes from the Global Truth Center, where David and I both went to ministerial school, and we both resonated with that and operated our lives from that principles. And I'm confident that we are who we are because we went to that service every Sunday and received those messages and have taken what we've learned out into the world. So speaking of taking things and putting them out into the world, we've talked a little bit about what peace means to us and how we express it. I'd love to hear about what you'd like to do next. What goals, thoughts, feelings, ideas, creative projects. How would you like to bring more peace in your community? How would you like to show up as a champion of peace in your community? And this question goes to everybody. Contributors, Chris, Jaswaika, Linda Tony Bear, feel free to chime in. And also, if anyone has a comment on something that anyone else has said, feel free to speak up on that as well. Done. All right, Elle's got something to say.
So my son left about a year ago. He's 18 years old, and I said, you can get a job or, go to school. Those are the things, right? And he decided not to talk to me. He decided to move out and not talk to me. So peace for me means letting it go, letting God know. And there's this Daniel Nahmod song that says, what is the title? It says, I don't need to know. I don't need to know when things go wrong. It's natural to wonder, and you can look up that song. I'm not gonna bore you guys, but like, to let go, that's what peace means to me, because being angry that I raised this person who's not talking to me sucks. It just outright sucks. And as a single mother, and like, this was my identity as his mother, for someone to not talk to me sucks. But peace to me means letting it go. And what would the Buddha do? Buddha left his son and his wife and his family. He left his princehood to go out and find out what peace meant to him. And he came back and brought the truth. So peace to me means letting go.
Thank you, Elle. Yes, Chris.
Okay. All right. So hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this. I really appreciate it. I loved everything that has been said. I really resonate with. As your wife was speaking, what occurred to me is there was a point in time when I went in India at the Oneness University for a month. We were asked to name our divine. So give your divine a name. The examples where you could say father, you could call your mother, you could call so the name I gave my divine at first, of course, it was Jesus eventually, and God, which is good orderly direction, God, was duck. Now everybody said, duck, what's duck? Well, I love ducks. So I have a bunch of ducks in my house, and my father loved ducks. I have all his ducks. So, but the deal is, I went to sleep with knowing that my divine was named Duck. And I woke up the next day with what duck meant to me. D-U-C-K. Divine, uses, constant, kindness, duck. Now I got that in India, and I'm like, well, thank you, God. That was inspirational. And that's how I walk through the world. Like what David said, I wake up in the morning, I set an intention, and it's often to take my smile with me wherever I go. And so I believe that, like has been said, as I carry myself through the world, that affects others. So if I come from this place of divine uses constant kindness, and when I come from setting the intention of living and let live, which is what everybody's been talking about, then I am at peace with myself, and I carry that out. It starts inside, and it's about how I affect others. Yes, I have road rage like most people in the world these days. Maybe not most people. So yes, I have incidents, yet I'm always pulled back to how I am affecting others. I come from, I'm a recovering alcoholic. My first 50 years were 24 years sober. So I live the 12-step programs, both Al-Anon and AA. And one of the Al-Anon prayers is when I have a problem with somebody, the prayer is, dear God, help, fill in the blank. Dear God, help change me. Is the only thing I can do about how I'm helping my son Luke, who is himself an alcoholic, is to stay on my own side of the street, like your wife said, and change me and learn the dialogue when I'm dealing with someone who's, oh, I'm sorry you're going through that. Not, well, if I were you, not that. I'm sorry you're going through that. Help them change me. And so I'm not presently involved in a community of a spiritual community per se. I don't wake up and go someplace. Yet I think I'm involved in a great many spiritual communities, from the place of how every single thing I've ever done supports what you and I learned at Bodhi, which is a faith, philosophy, and a way of life. And the way of life part is what I hear everybody talking about. The way they do life, the way we do life, so that I am a beacon of light. You know, I hear that all the time. And sometimes I'm like, oh, well, all the time I'm thank you. But I hear that I'm a beacon of light from the, and I have to just say, well, they're seeing something or they're hearing something in me that I might not be seeing or hearing. So I'm going to call, obviously I called it in. So if I'm calling it in, it's simply thank you. Thank you. And so what I give out, I call back in, right? And life is good these years now that I've managed to become 74 years old. After all those years when I was not living in a peaceful manner. So I'm so very grateful to be here and so very grateful to be able to share with all the other peace presenters in this Zoom meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'm grateful that you showed up. I haven't seen you since Chicago, since I left Chicago a good 13 or so years ago. So I'm so grateful for your presence and an opportunity to connect. I also love that you mentioned being a part of several spiritual communities. I like to call myself a spiritual slut because I am a part of all kinds of communities. I'm not shackling myself. I'm not monogamously spiritual. And I love, generally people don't do things like that. They're like, this is my one place, and they stick with it the entire time. And one of the best ways to express peace is to go out in the world, not just stay with the same people doing the same thing, but to get to know lots of different people and engage in conversations in lots of different ways. Just like you, thank you. Just like you had your hand raised.
Yeah. So when I originally booked this in my calendar, I was gonna go a little frou-frou. But last night I had a dream of my old house in Monterey Park, and there was a mother crying on the floor and she was just sobbing. And I was consoling her, and I was telling her, you're a wonderful mother, you're powerful, this and that. And she broke down harder and she was like, I can't do this anymore. This is too hard. And then I found out this morning that there was a shooting in Monterey Park at the Lunar New Year Festival. I lived in Monterey Park for over 6 years. I went to the Lunar New Year events multiple times throughout time I was living there. I don't live in that community anymore. But I was really shaken up and angry this morning, and it really just disturbed my peace. this is a silly example, but I finished watching this anime called Chainsaw Man. And in the series, there is this devil that is controlling individuals, and it's a gun devil, and it feeds off of fear, and it becomes stronger and more powerful when people feed into that fear. So I was like, yo, let me switch my energy. And like, I started doing my prac homework, and I started reading, and like, I did a little meditation, and I was focusing more so on peace, healing, and justice for the community, instead of like sitting in my own anger, because that's not going to solve anything. I mean, like, I could sit and like rip shit up and like tear shit apart and be angry, but that's genuinely not going to solve anything. So yeah, that was my like current reality bit on peace, like shifting into that. But I think one beautiful practice we do at CSL Teen Camp, I'm a youth advisor among a variety of other things, is that at the end of the evening, we do a peace to me is. And so all the teens in like a little candlelight setting stand up and state, peace to me is blank. And so like sometimes they get like really silly and they're like, oh, peace to me is eating like that bomb burger at lunch today. Or like they get really deep and they say like, peace to me is being able to show my authentic self while I'm here and feeling unconditionally loved and supported while I'm at teen camp, and knowing that love and support continues with me off of this mountain. And so I think it's one of there's so many favorite parts of like camp that I get to experience, but I always appreciated that as a teen because people get to stand up in their power and claim what peace is to them. And everybody responds in like snaps, or they started this year doing this like whoop, 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 whoop thing. And I think it's really cute that they just get to share authentically like that. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Jaswika. And I appreciate you mentioning this incident. And, today is the Lunar New Year. And, this morning, we're always kind of just waking up in the morning to discover that this mass shooting happened here and there. And Spirit Uncensored, part of our inspiration to host these conversations over the course of the year and beyond, we'll see what happens after this year, but that it's about peace beginning with all of us, that when we have these spaces to have these conversations, to make these connections, we identify what we can do individually, that instead of allowing the feelings of the world to consume us, that we're coming from a place of power, empowerment. And a couple of months from now, I'll drop the link in the chat. Well, actually, starting next month, we're going to start this series called New Thoughts on ... And more topics have been coming to me. So I feel like it's going to go far beyond the end of this year. But this year is what we've got all scheduled out. And one of them is on gun violence. I think in May, we'll be having that conversation. And even though it's my birthday, I was like, this is something that's important to me. And so we'll be having that conversation then. And Kate, thank you for joining us. I want to reiterate that this is a open dialogue, and that this is not about hierarchies, that everybody is welcome and encouraged to participate in the conversation. And my roommate Addison has got something she'd like to say, so I'm gonna swirl it all over her.
Hi guys, like Casey said, my name is Addison. I happen to live with Casey and Elle. I just wanted to include this because I think it's something that's so important, in this household. We really do live a peace and first thought sort of mindset. I am the event coordinator for an all ages drag show that happens here in Oklahoma City at United Life CSL.
Oh, you gotta tell me.
With Elle, that's what I'm sharing. That Elle and Casey helped me with and stuff like that for this year. It was actually their idea that I'm just sort of pushing along further. However, in the news this morning, and it was discussed, we had a congregation meeting today, that Oklahoma is put forth a bill to make all ages drag shows in the state a felony, to put one on. And so of course the first thing that me and Elle both were what? Like, and you have this first like thought of like just not understanding, anger, exasperation, And then pretty quickly, like her and I just looked at each other and we took a breath. We were like, you know what? I think we're just going to send invitations to every single state senator and state congressman to actually participate in this experience, because it must be that they've never been to one and don't understand what it actually is. And so we literally talked about it tonight. We will print out a poster, and I'm going to create a letter specifically as the event coordinator to invite all of them, and then make sure that also gets put out to every news outlet that we can possibly get it out to, because I think it's such an important conversation. So I think that sometimes people have this idea that peace equals a lack of movement for your own community and own spaces, and it doesn't have to be. It just has to be, how can we change the conversation in a positive way to, you know, move things along and make our society a better society. I think part of the thing for me is I want to create a space that's not just peaceful for me, but peaceful for the people that come after me, and the people that will come and go, you know what, I absolutely just want to be a part of this in some way or another, and do it to where it's safe for everyone. Because that is a concern, you know, in these times, especially when it is an agenda that's pushed forward that these old ages drag shows should be something that's illegalized and something that should be penalized. And this narrative that gets put forward that, you know, drag performances are equal to sex shows or things of that nature for these kids, when really, if you look at it, every child that at least we've seen at these shows has been like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like, this is so amazing. I want to like see more of this. I wish I had the opportunity to see more. And so it really, I think, opens up children to this idea of love, no matter what space that you're in, which I think is super important. But to me, that's just kind of where my headspace was in when this conversation started, of like, it's something that doesn't get brought up a lot, but peaceful protest is the thing, because for that reason, is so that way we don't have to go and just feel like we got to destroy everything and do everything, but how do we move the conversation forward in a positive way?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Addison. We are doing a New Thoughts on Politics in October, FYI, so y'all can look out for that one. And, you know, this experience of living within a community where, I'm just going to say, oppressive regulation on people's bodies. This is a state where gender affirming care is banned for people of a certain age, and there's also an attempt to raise that age. And MJ and I, working with transgender youth who are often on their own because their parents are not supportive of who they are, and trying to navigate these legal systems in a city that is actively working against their best interests, instead of choosing to show up and have conversations with what these youth are going through. It's been really beautiful to work at an organization like CSU, where everyone is so involved politically. Every protest, I always hear stories of CSU employees running into each other at them. There was a city council, I don't even know what to call it, you know, recommendation of somebody wanted to pass legislation around fining homeless people for being homeless, that if they were sleeping outside, they would have to pay a fine. And obviously, if they're sleeping outside, they don't have any fine money. And so the leadership from CSU and service providers from all over the city stopped what they're doing. This information came out on a Monday night, and Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., within less than 12 hours of this news breaking, service providers were there advocating on the behalf of their clients, and it got squashed before a conversation even got to take place. We spent the meeting, our staff meeting ended up being us watching the live stream of people around the community advocating for the transient population. So again, opening up the conversation we've got about 14 minutes left. I would say maybe 10 minutes left before we pray out. So now would be a great time for final thoughts, comments. Kate, don't feel like just because you came in late that you don't get to add your voice. With us being a uncensored experience, uncensored language, and comfort, authenticity are what we celebrate and honor here. Linda, you look like you're about to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Actually, I know I was going to turn my camera because I've lost somebody's face. I don't know where it went. But anyway, well, this is really awesome. My name's Linda Tony Barr, and I'm in Oklahoma City. And I've learned two things tonight that I dislike. But anyway, it's very awesome to hear what everybody's saying. I also am a recovering alcoholic. I love what you said, a spiritual slut. I'm a 12-step slut. I go to all of them. I've never met an A I didn't like. Yeah, so I've been clean and sober 38 years, and I've been doing every 12-step program constantly since I was 23 years old. I'm now 62, and I'm a person who teaches creative journal, expressive arts, recovery of the inner child. I teach nonviolent communication, visioning, power of the other hand, working with the left and right hemispheres of the brain. So I do all that fun stuff. And I just, what's coming up for me, I really had no idea what we were doing tonight. I got the invitation and I said, I'm going to do that. And I cooked my whole meal while we were on here. So thank you for your patience. Yeah, nonviolent communication seems to be the place where this connects for me. The peace. I am an activist. I'm not a person who's sitting on a mountain with, oming. I am an out there doing it person, and I cuss, and I don't know how not to. Don't even want to learn at this moment. And but I also really resonate with. I'm going to have to plug in here as we talk. Watch me switch my direction. The orientation has moved. Plugged in. Yeah, I forget what I was saying. Nonviolent communication, bringing it back in the moment. And for me, peace is about peace of mind. That's what I was about to say. It is about when I'm cruising around life, this is my little amygdala right here, and this is the frontal lobe, and I'm cruising around life, and then some bitch, I flip my lid, and my amygdala is exposed, and I get flight or flight, flight, or what do they call it? Fight or flight.
Right.
And so my whole life is about, what do we do? How can we bring this back down? How can we there. And there has to do with anxiety, depression. I am around a lot of people who have committed suicide, had a recent one, very close to me. There's plenty of opportunity in the world for getting upset. There's plenty of ways to flip my lid. I can flip my lid all day long, everywhere I go. And so where can I go out in the world to learn how to there? And nonviolent communication, I don't like the way that it implies, it almost accentuates the word violence. However, it attracts the attention that's needed. And it is a method based on Marshall Rosenberg from Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, somewhere in Pennsylvania. And it's just all about, how can I communicate in a way that allows connection? That's what it's about. And for me, that's about peace. And I'm not a do-gooder. I'm not like, let me, I don't know about all that. I do know that I like connection, and that I like peace of mind, and I like sleeping good at night, and so those are some of the ingredients that are important to me. I do have I'll pitch this. I have some nonviolent communication Zoom classes on Tuesday mornings. And if anybody's interested, I can get you some information. I also have all these other classes going on at the same time. You can follow me on Linda's workshops. Linda with a Y, I noticed there in my name. Linda's workshops, and I've got tons of stuff I'm offering, both Zoom and Oklahoma City. And I just really heard great things from others here in Oklahoma City, and I want to meet MJ and connect. Connect. I like to connect. Thank you. Thanks for this and letting me be a part of it.
I'm so grateful that you're here, and an opportunity maybe that y'all might be interested in this connection is that Spirit Uncensored is hosting live conversations like these on the last Sunday of the month at Alibis. And so, Linda, you mentioned you and your daughter coming down. Alibis fully supports. They have lots of non-alcoholic spirits, just as an FYI. They have non-alcoholic. The owner identifies as an alcoholic, is sober. So there are lots of opportunities for sobriety in this space, regardless of the fact that it is a bar for y'all 12 staff people out there. Kate, I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak up because you look like you were about to unmute.
Hi, I'm Kate. That's all I have to say.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here. I love that CC got comfortable and got in the bed, demonstrating just what.
Wait. She's got in the bed?
Yeah, CC's in the bed.
Okay.
This is what an uncensored conversation is about. Comfort is important. And I'm glad that you are living and serving by example of noting that featured contributors get to get cozy and do what they do. I've got this delicious looking shrimp and grits here, waiting for me. Just Wicca, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to know what Kate's sweater says, the rest of it. Is it the song or is it something like brilliant? I mean, they're both brilliant, but
it
I'm
says
just curious.
I got 99 problems, but I can call 988 when I feel overwhelmed. And then it has a bunch of positive affirmations on the back.
That's fantastic. I love that.
A bunch of other stuff on the back. So
thank you. All right. Anything else before we pray and close out? Yes, David, please.
First of all, I want to say hi to Just Wicca because I just got to meet her on Friday at our Zoom meeting, and she is our latest board member for Spirit Uncensored. So it's good to see you again. And thank you for taking on that responsibility. I love the philosophy of New Thought, and I specifically love the philosophy of Science of the Mind because it's so fun and it's so intellectual. But because it's so intellectual, sometimes we forget how to share and make things real so that we can use them on a daily basis. And that's what I consider to be my ministry, both as a hypnotherapist and in the work that I do as a Science of Mind minister. One of the things that I teach my clients, and one of the things that I teach when I talk, is this statement, this sentence that I put together that I simply call the question. And the question is this: what can I do at this moment to create more peace, more love, and more happiness for myself and for those around me? What can I do at this moment to create more peace, more love, and more happiness for myself and for those around me? And I found that question fits pretty much any situation that I might be in at any given time.
Beautiful. Thank you, David. Anybody else got any closing thoughts? Anything you'd like to add? Yes, please, MJ. Oh, and Carlene. Carlene, we haven't heard from you yet. So why don't you go first, and then we'll go to MJ.
Okay. I won't talk very much now because I was happy to hear that you're scheduling October for New Thoughts on Politics. And politics have gotten really bizarre since COVID. And I put a question in my registration that I'll save to talk about in October. I also want to say something about nonviolent communication. I participate in a nonviolent communication group that's called Across the Aisle, where we get to bring up these conflicting ideas, usually about politics and social issues. And there, I'll just say right now, I'm an unvaccinated person. And there I get to speak my truth about why I made that choice and why I'm a part of the health freedom movement, without people lashing out at me. We all listen to each other with deep listening and respect, and we're asked to repeat back to the person who spoke just before we're getting ready to speak what they said. Not disagreeing, just repeating back. And that's such a helpful process. So I'm looking forward to many more of these discussions. Thank you so much for inviting me, Casey.
And thank you so much for being here. You know, the debate that you spoke of vaccinated versus unvaccinated. It's important, I think, to have people of different walks of life and different beliefs come together and have a peaceful conversation. So thank you for being an example of that and bringing that up into this space. MJ.
Okay, it's not a big comment, but one, David, I have loved watching the sunset during this entire conversation. Something about me is that I don't have a God, but I believe that the sun is my God, is who I worship. I am Guatemalan. That is just something that's been ingrained in my indigenous roots of just appreciation and adoration for the sun. So like watching the sunset, I had already seen the Oklahoma City sunset because I literally lay on my couch. Like I moved my entire apartment around so that every day after work, I take kind of like a vow of silence for 2 hours. And I just watch the sunset go down and I just let my body literally just feel whatever the hell happened that day. And so having this conversation and watching the sunset in California was just like bliss. But two, I want to find out more about your thoughts, because a lot of the things that you said, I resonate with and I put into practice. This whole reality versus reality really is something that I've been exploring a lot. Right now, I'm contemplating going back to grad school and getting my master's in Buddhist psychology because of just this, I've been reading so much in my spare time. And I believe that part of my thing in life is to be a scholar and just continuing to consume information and grow as a person. And so a lot of that, the things that you were saying, I was just like, I want to hear more. So I would love to get your email and just talk and chat. That is amazing, especially within the Latinx community, because a lot of these things are so no-node in the Latinx community. It's so wonderful to see another fellow Hispanic Latinx person doing the work and understanding just how difficult it is to get our community to understand that self-care is real and is essential and is part of doing your due diligence as a community member. So that's my thought.
I appreciate you saying that. I'm sorry, David, feel free to respond. Don't let me step on your toes.
I don't know if it's appropriate to give out phone numbers, but I'll be happy to give you my phone number. You can text me at any time you wish. So let me do now, and anyone else who wants to have a conversation with me. My phone number is 626.
Wait. You know what? I'll drop it in the chat for y'all in a minute. So, or actually, David, yeah, I can drop it in the chat. I'll drop David's number in the chat, and also invite anyone, if you have, Linda, you mentioned some workshops. If you've got something you want people to know about, feel free to drop it in the chat as well. And what I'm going to do real quick is read this thing that was posted on Facebook and pray us out while you drop your things in the chat, and I'll drop David's number. John Perrycone posted it, and it said, several years ago, I invited a Buddhist monk to speak to my senior elective class. And quite interestingly, as he entered the room, he didn't say a word and caught everyone's attention. He just walked to the board and wrote this: everyone wants to save the world, but no one wants to help mom do the dishes. But then he went on to say this to our students: statistically, it's highly unlikely that any of you will ever have the opportunity to run into a burning orphanage and rescue an infant. But in the smallest gesture of kindness, a warm smile, holding the door for the person behind you, shoveling the driveway of the elderly person next door, you have committed an act of immeasurable profundity, because to each of us, our life is our universe. This is my hope for you in the new year, that by your smallest acts of kindness, you will save another's world. So that's what this event was about. It's about starting these conversations and encouraging one another to perform small acts of kindness. And as I am dropping Dave, I'll drop his phone number and email into the chat. I would love to actually ask David to pray us out while I do that. How do you feel about that, David?
I'd be so honored to do that. Thank you much. And I'm going to invite everyone to settle in, get as comfortable as you possibly can, to take a deep breath, just to allow any tension to be released, and any of that stuff that's not necessary at the moment, so that we can absorb and feel the vibration of all the beautiful information that we've just shared with one another, because that's what this is about. This is community. We bring together, we come together as one through this thing called communication. And so here's what I know. I know that what's going on right now is a thing that I call God, is a thing that I understand as divine love, divine intelligence, divine creation, always creating, always in that process. And that process is what I am. That process is who I am. So when I say that peace begins with me, it's because I recognize that peace, that divine energy, that form, that aspect of God is who I am. I am the peace that I create. Therefore, I recognize that just the work that's been done today, this conversation has opened up hearts, has opened up minds, has created a vibration that's resounding not only nationwide, but around the world, even as we speak right now. And so with that, I feel such a tremendous feeling of gratitude for this ability to share and communicate. I'm grateful to Reverend K.C. Taylor, because she walks her talk. She does the work. She's not afraid to reach out and to make things happen. She moves energy, and she does it dramatically and powerfully. And she draws to her within her sphere the amazing people that are sharing this today. And so I recognize that KC is God. I recognize that she is that power. And I recognize that that power is shared amongst all of us, that we, all of us, collectively and individually, are that divine reality. And with that knowledge and with that feeling of gratitude, I allow myself to simply release this word, recognizing that the truth has been shared, that the truth is known, and the truth is us. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you so much, Reverend David. Thank you for everyone who's shown up for this conversation, and would love to see y'all in the coming months as we begin our New Thoughts On series. The first one is New Thoughts on Dating, which is going to be on Sunday, February 12th. Feel free to join that conversation. Addison, my roommate who spoke earlier, will be engaged and involved in that conversation. So look out for more info. And all things are on spirituncensored.org. So feel free to check there to see what we've got going on virtually and in the Oklahoma City area. Thanks, y'all. Have a great rest of your couple weeks, month. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, everybody.